It's 2:12 a.m. Maybe 3:40, you're not sure anymore. You've checked the clock too many times already, hoping this would be the moment your body gives in. But the thoughts don't stop. They never really ask permission, do they? You might be lying in the dark, curled up under a blanket that used to feel soft, but now just feels there. Maybe your chest is heavy with something you can't name. Maybe it's the memory of someone you lost too soon, or the way your mind won't let go of everything that could have, should have, might have been. Maybe you've got a storm behind your eyes, thoughts racing, rewinding, looping. It could be grief, or anxiety, or just a kind of sadness that doesn't come with an explanation. The kind that arrives like fog quietly and all at once. If you're living with ADHD, it's probably loud in your head even now. So much noise and no one else can hear it. Or maybe it's trauma hiding behind your heartbeat, pulling at your breath when the room gets too quiet. But you're here now, and I see you. You're not broken, you're tired, and you're safe here. So let's go somewhere else for a while. Not forward, not back, just sideways. Imagine this. A black ocean, endless and nameless, stretches out in every direction. It doesn't roar or crash, it breathes. Slow, tidal, like a giant sleeping creature. The stars don't twinkle here, they hum. A low silver glow like frost caught in ink. There are no clocks, no deadlines. Just the sound of sails, creaking ropes swaying. Wind sighs through the beams above you, soft as a memory. You're not sure where you are exactly, but you know you're not home. You wake up slowly, your cheek pressed against old wood. The boards are warm from the sun and salt. Your wrists are bound in rough cord. Not tight, just enough to remind you this isn't a dream. Your mouth tastes of iron and sea, and something sweet. Maybe citrus faded and long gone. You're on a ship, a pirate ship maybe, or a merchant vessel gone rogue. It smells like wood smoke and brine and old sweat soaked into ropes. The deck sways gently beneath you and the whole world groans softly with the weight of the waves. You don't know how you got here. Maybe you owe someone something. Maybe you ran from something worse. Or maybe, and this happens more often than you'd think, you just fell asleep in the wrong tavern and woke up tied to the mast. But the reason doesn't matter anymore. You're just a body now. A name no one says out loud, drifting on a sea without a map. You could be anyone. And here in this moment, that's a kind of freedom. If this voice is helping you feel calmer, you're welcome to subscribe. But only if it feels good. No pressure, no rush. You can always come back. I'll be right here. Can I ask, where are you right now? Are you lying in bed? Still fully dressed on the couch, sitting upright in a kitchen chair in the dark. What time is it where you are? Do you even want to know? Just let yourself breathe. If you haven't already, turn off the lights. Let the screen glow be the only thing left. Maybe turn on a fan, that low hum always helps. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Wiggle your fingers, your toes. You're still here. You made it to now. That's more than enough. And now, let's begin tonight's journey. Hey guys, tonight we time travel somewhere a bit more elemental. No castles, no powdered wigs, no complicated politics, just you, the wind, and a group of strangers who think dinner grows in dirt and moves very fast. You wake up before the sun is even committed to rising. The fire's nothing but ash and faint red glow now, and the air is cold enough to feel like it has opinions about your bare feet. Someone is snoring beside you. Someone else is already poking the embers with a stick, trying to resuscitate last night's warmth like a forest EMT. You're lying on a pile of half-dried reeds wrapped in a hide that smells like wet dog and smoke. And you're hungry. Deep, bone-level hungry. You sit up slowly, trying not to disturb the person next to you, though frankly they smell like they were already disturbed long before you met. You glance around the clearing. The rest of your little band is stirring, stretching, scratching. No words yet, just grunts and long nasal exhalations. Talking comes after chewing, if chewing ever comes at all. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and the local time in the comments. I love knowing who else is awake with me in the dark. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. A woman you don't recognize tosses you a hunk of something that looks like wood but smells vaguely edible. You catch it by instinct like a squirrel catching a flying pine cone and stare down at what is apparently breakfast. It's a root of some kind. Tough, veiny, streaked with dirt and cold. You bite into it. It tastes like sadness and tree bark. You chew and chew and chew. The woman gives you a nod of approval. Welcome to the morning meal. No pancakes, no espresso, no elegant Instagram-worthy bowls of granola and tropical fruit. Just something ripped from the earth and barely scrubbed. You glance at the others. Some are munching the same root. Others are digging through the leftover coals with sticks, hoping a small rodent from last night might have wandered into the embers and self-cooked. No luck. This is the norm. In prehistoric times, breakfast was whatever hadn't rotted overnight or been dragged off by something hungrier than you. And yes, food safety wasn't so much a system as it was a dice roll. Historians still argue whether our ancestors deliberately chose to eat these gnarly tubers or simply ran out of options around winter. Your stomach groans, but it's a gentle protest, like it's resigned. You keep gnawing. Suddenly you hear a yelp of excitement. Someone's waving a fistful of bugs, black shiny beetles, the kind you normally avoid stepping on. But here, they're a protein jackpot. The woman with the bugs is grinning like she just found truffles in the dirt. She passes them around. You manage to avoid that treat this morning. Someone else grabs your share. Small mercies. There's no cutlery, no plates, just fingers and open mouths. A young boy uses a flat stone to crush a beetle before licking the goo off like it's a prehistoric lollipop. You look away. Too early for that level of intimacy with nature. And yet, despite it all, there's a strange rhythm to this. The fire crackles. Someone hums a tuneless melody while cleaning their teeth with a twig. The sun finally starts to show up, pale and half-hearted, as if it also didn't sleep well. Steam rises from the forest floor. Everything is damp: your hair, the ground, the food, even your thoughts. The smell is a layered thing: smoke, soil, something slightly rotting. The woman who gave you the root now peels bark from a tree and chews it slowly, like it's chewing gum that might accidentally poison you. Turns out it's willow bark, and fun fact, it contains a chemical similar to aspirin. Quirky, right, pain relief in stick form. No pharmacy required. One of the elders mutters something and stands. Everyone quiets down. This usually means something's about to happen, either a story or an announcement, or sometimes just a particularly elaborate sneeze. This time it's a decision. There will be hunting today. The food stores are low. The mushrooms from yesterday made someone very weird, and if the group doesn't find meat soon, it's going to be another week of chewing memories. You're expected to go. Not because you're good at it. You're definitely not. You once threw a spear and it spun in a full circle before landing behind you. But you have legs and you're breathing, and that's enough to earn you a spot in the hunting party. You sigh and start lacing up your sandals, except of course there are no sandals. Just a bit of hide strapped around your foot with twine that cuts off circulation if you walk too fast. Fashion, eat your heart out. The fire's a bit stronger now, and someone throws in a few dried animal turds to keep it going. You're told it burns better than wood. You choose not to ask whose idea that was originally. There's a long walk ahead. You stand, stretch, and feel every joint in your body complain. The woman who shared her root with you offers another piece. You take it even though your jaw is still sore. Survival doesn't come with dental plans. The forest waits wide and wet and full of teeth, and you're walking toward it. Because breakfast was awful, and you're still hungry. You follow the group into the trees' feet, squelching softly through damp undergrowth. Everything is wet. Leaves drip onto your shoulders. Your knees brush against ferns that glisten with dew or something pretending to be dew. The forest is dense, pressing in from every direction like it resents your intrusion. The silence isn't really silence, more like a layering of tiny sounds, insects churring branches, creaking your stomach, grumbling like it's trying to communicate in whale song. Nobody talks much. The hunters are focused. You pretend to be too. The man in front of you carries a spear longer than he is tall. The tip is stone, napped so precisely it looks modern, almost surgical. He carved it himself using only another rock and several hours of grunting frustration. You know because you watched. Prehistoric crafting is less DIY and more buyao, bring your own wounds. Historians still argue whether these stone tools were used primarily for hunting or for butchering afterward, because, spoiler, most hunting was really sneaking up on something half dead and hoping it didn't turn around. Your legs are already sore, but no one stops. You trudge past ancient trees that feel like they've seen everything: fires, floods, maybe even other awkward people pretending to be hunters. One of the elders pauses at a tree trunk and touches it reverently. You think he's blessing it. Then you realize he's just relieving himself. Spiritual moment over. Hours pass. Or maybe it's minutes. Time is weird out here. You're walking, sweating, ducking under low-hanging branches that seem personally offended by your face. And still no prey. That's when someone mentions mammoths. Your ears perk up. Mammoth, like the mammoth giant shaggy-horned hamburger on legs. The one from cartoons and freezer aisle branding. Yes, that one. No, you're not hunting it. Mammoth hunting it, turns out, was not a daily occurrence. Too dangerous. Too much effort. And according to modern analysis of butchery sites, much rarer than your imagination wants it to be. Historians still argue whether mammoths were actively hunted or simply scavenged after dying of age, injury, or tragic clumsiness. Either way, they were special event food, wedding cake tier food, not Tuesday morning hunger food. So instead you're looking for deer, maybe wild boar, birds if someone remembered to bring the net made of braided grass, and mild optimism. But game is scarce. The forest feels picked over. Your party slows near a bend in the trail, eyes sharp, shoulders tight. You think you hear something, hoofbeats, the soft snap of a twig. Your own heartbeat trying to start a rebellion. Then you see it, a shadow in the brush, small, fast, probably a hare, or a ghost, or your imagination rebelling after too many carbs from root vegetables. The lead hunter gestures and everyone freezes. He moves like a ghost himself, silent, coiled, deadly serious. You hold your breath. The spear flies from his hand, arcs through the air, and thuds into a tree trunk. The shadow bolts away safe and smug. The hunter curses under his breath. You don't speak the language, but you understand disappointment in every tongue. Still not a total loss. Someone spots a cluster of birds' nests in a low-hanging tree. Eggs. You climb because you're new and because rookie with good balance is apparently a job title now. The bark is slick. Your fingers slip. A twig jabs you somewhere intimate. But you make it up just barely and grab 2 warm eggs from the nest. You almost drop them, but you don't. Victory. The descent is less graceful. You hit the ground with a satisfying oof, but the eggs are intact. People nod. Someone claps you on the back too hard, like you just won a medal. You'd trade all this admiration for a protein bar, honestly. The party decides to loop back toward the river. Maybe there will be fish, or someone else's leftovers. You trudge along, egg thief extraordinaire, wondering how many calories you've burned foraging ingredients for what amounts to prehistoric scrambled disappointment. Eventually you stop. Everyone crouches. You follow suit bones creaking like a haunted xylophone. Up ahead, a small stream. In it, a deer. Young, distracted, sipping water as if it's not about to become dinner. The silence stretches, then motion. The leader throws again. This time the spear flies true. A clean strike. The deer leaps, stumbles, collapses. The forest goes still. You're not sure how you feel. Relief, excitement, guilt, all three mashed together like a stew of moral ambiguity. But dinner is dinner, and the group wastes no time. They move in quickly and efficiently. The butchering begins, and no part of the animal is wasted meat, sinew, bone, hide. Everything has a use. Someone even scoops up blood into a hollowed-out gourd. Rich in iron, they explain. You nod like that makes sense, trying not to gag. The smell is overwhelming, metallic, earthy, honest. You're handed a chunk of meat. It's still warm, still quivering almost. Someone offers you a flint blade. You hesitate. Then you slice. The blade is sharper than anything you've used before, stone, but cruelly precise, like the forest taught it to cut. You skewer a strip of meat onto a green stick and hold it over a fire that someone lit with lightning speed friction. The flames pop and hiss. The meat chars, curls, tightens. You bite in. It's tough, chewy, bloody at the center, but it's meat. Real, actual meat. And right now it tastes like heaven. You're still chewing when someone pats your shoulder and hands you something else, this time a leathery scrap with a sour smell that makes your eyes water. You blink, take it politely, and wonder if this is dessert or a dare. It's not meat, not quite. You bring it to your nose and it fights back. Vinegar rots something vaguely goat-adjacent. Fermented milk, they say, from the inside of a goat's stomach. Ah, you look around. Everyone else is sipping or chewing it like it's a delicacy. And in a way it is. Prehistoric preservation wasn't about taste. It was about not dying. This clump of creamy funk is what's left after days of letting milk curdle, ferment, and practically develop a personality inside an animal's gut. And somehow this is the good stuff. Historians still argue whether this method was discovered by accident or desperation, but let's be honest, those two tend to hold hands in prehistory. You take a bite. It's sour, fizzy, strangely warm. Your tongue recoils, but your stomach perks up like a dog catching a whiff of bacon. It wants more. You oblige, mostly out of peer pressure and a deep fear of offending the man with the sharpest spear. As the sun moves overhead, everyone settles down to rest. The hunt was successful and no one wants to push their luck. People recline under trees, hide scraps of meat in woven pouches for later, and let the food settle. A few children play with pebbles, pretending they're animals. A girl turns a stick into a pretend spear and mimics the hunt. You watch her throw. It's better than your first attempt. The fire's still burning. Someone adds damp moss to it, creating thick smoke that drives away flies and neighbors alike. The smell is less offensive than you expected. Kind of woodsy, a hint of mildew and toasted earth. Honestly, it beats the goat yogurt. A man beside you points at the moss and mutters something about holy smoke. You don't catch the words, but the reverence is obvious. Apparently, they think it keeps spirits away. Or invites them, or maybe both. Historians still argue whether prehistoric smoke rituals were symbolic or just practical pest control. Either way, the bugs hate it, so you're on board. You glance up. The canopy above filters the sunlight into threads of gold and green. A bird calls. Once, then falls silent. The world is hushed in a way cities never are, quiet but alive. You take a deep breath and realize something strange. You're not anxious right now. You're not thinking about bills or regrets or inboxes. You're just here. Hungry, tired, mildly queasy, but present. Someone offers you a flatbread of sorts. More like a thin cake of ground seeds and water slapped onto a hot rock and cooked until it's crisp on the outside and gritty on the inside. It tastes like ambition. But it fills the cracks the meat couldn't reach. They don't call it bread because words like that don't exist yet. But this is proto-bread seeds crushed with stones mixed with water, then dried or roasted. Technically food, emotionally confusing. Still, it's a culinary upgrade. The seeds used are ancient ancestors of things you might recognize today. Einkorn, emmer, wild barley, nothing fluffy, nothing with a crust. But it's something your jaw can win against, which is progress. One of the elders tells a story. You don't know the words, but you catch the rhythm. It's about an animal, a mistake, a long journey, and laughter. There's always laughter, even when the stories aren't funny. It's how they end things here. With a laugh, or a shrug, or a fart loud enough to startle the birds. You lean back, stretch your legs, and rest against a rock that's been sun-warmed to a perfect nap temperature. Your belly is fuller than it's been in days. Or it would be if you'd lived here for real. You close your eyes and let the moment stretch out like old leather. But there's no such thing as true rest for long. A rustling in the underbrush makes everyone sit up. It's not urgent, not danger, but interest. A woman returns from a short forage run with something cupped carefully in her hands. Mushrooms. You knew it was coming. There's a sharp inhale from the group. Mushrooms are drama. Every prehistoric community has its opinions. Which ones are safe? Which ones open your mind? Which ones open your stomach from the inside out? The woman sets them down, pale, small, a little bruised. You hear murmurs, a few nods, a few head shakes. One man steps away and crosses himself, or at least performs the prehistoric version, which might just be scratching his shoulder dramatically. Historians still argue whether early humans had reliable systems for mushroom identification or whether they just watched who died and took notes. Tonight's gamble. These are probably fine. No one volunteers to eat them first, which means it's either the elder or the newcomer. Guess who that is? You. The elder hands you a piece, a quarter of the cap, tiny, innocent, mildly terrifying. You chew, it's earthy, slightly bitter, not awful. You wait. Everyone watches. 30 seconds, a minute, no hallucinations, no vomiting, not even a rash. You survive the taste trial, and suddenly the whole group dives in, tearing the mushrooms into strips and tossing them onto hot stones near the fire. Cooked, they smell better. Richer, less like old leaf mulch, more like anticipation. The meal continues casual and unceremonious. You chew sip water from a leaf-lined bowl and listen to the fire sigh. Someone sneezes, someone snores. The forest leans in closer, branches heavy with secrets. And for the moment you belong here, among these people, in this place. In this weird, smoky, root-flavored world where meat is rare, mushrooms are a gamble, and your role, oddly enough, is food taster. Congratulations. The jungle closes in again like it's trying to erase the trail behind you. If you turned around now, you might not find your way back. Not that you'd try. Back doesn't exist anymore. There's only forward, and even that feels questionable. The sun is directly overhead now, stabbing through gaps in the canopy and thin, punishing shafts. Every one of them seems aimed directly at your eyes. You tilt your head forward, squinting under the shaggy animal hide hood someone lent you, but the glare still finds you. Your shirt clings to your back like it's trying to escape the heat by fusing with your skin. Someone coughs behind you. Dry and hacking, the kind of cough that comes from weeks of breathing damp dust, smoke, and whatever else floats through this air. You hear someone pass a canteen. You hear the grateful sound of swallowing. You don't ask for a sip. You've still got your own, and rationing is more habit than necessity now. Ahead, the leader stops walking and consults his map again. The map, of course, is mostly guesswork. Rain smeared one corner last week. Another got torn when Jenkins fell on it. Still, he frowns at it like it owes him an apology and points toward a narrow trail that winds up a ridge choked with vines. You follow. What you're looking for allegedly is small game. Rabbit, squirrel, maybe even a bird or two. Something realistic, manageable, definitely not mammoth. That word comes up again, mammoth, and someone scoffs. You remember the myth, the big shaggy creature with tusks like tree trunks. The truth is less heroic. Historians still argue whether mammoth meat was a dietary staple or a once-in-a-generation feast. Evidence from kill sites suggests that most of the time people didn't hunt them, they found them. Already dead. Already still. Already rotting. Because hunting a mammoth is madness. They're huge, unpredictable, aggressive. They don't fall neatly to a single spear or even 5. Bringing one down takes planning, terrain, luck, and the kind of teamwork that usually only emerges when several people owe each other favors or blood. But the stories persist. You've heard them even back at camp. Glorious tales passed down from cracked lips around smoky fires. Stories that leave out the frostbite and fractured skulls, the starvation weeks afterward, the mourning songs for people crushed under all that prehistoric hamburger. You've stopped believing them, which makes you one of the smart ones. Instead, your hunting group has settled for less dramatic fare. And then someone spots it. Movement. You hear the rustle before you see it. Something small, fast. A flash of brown across a clearing. Everyone freezes. You hold your breath so tightly your ribs start to ache. The hunter to your right draws back his arm. A stone dart, sharpened and weighted, flies from his fingers and disappears into the brush. Silence, then a thump, then a squeal, and finally a cheer. Someone bolts forward, bushknife in hand, and returns a moment later holding a small animal by the hind legs. Not a deer, not a bird, a wild piglet, not much meat but more than mushrooms. It's squealing in protest, alive and furious, kicking with miniature hooves. It'll be quick. You don't watch. Instead, you help clear space for the fire. There's a kind of ritual to it now, gathering dry sticks, building a teepee of kindling, striking sparks with flint and quartz. The first puff of smoke earns a grunt of approval. The flames catch. And soon the smell of sizzling skin fills the air. You're not sure how you feel about this part. The meat cooks fast over such a small fire. The fat pops. The hair burns off. It smells primal. Not in the poetic sense. More in the my ancestors are waking up in my DNA sense. Everyone takes turns slicing off bites. No plates, just fingers, knives, and greasy chins. You do your best to stay polite while gnawing cartilage. One guy next to you uses his teeth like tools, ripping through a tendon with the enthusiasm of a dog on Christmas. The meat is gamey, chewy, a little metallic, but your stomach doesn't care. It throws a party anyway. Someone brings out a pouch of fermented berries. You sip. It fizzes against your tongue like angry vinegar, but it's alcoholic enough to make your lips numb. Your legs warm. The world softens at the edges, and just when you think the meal's over, a surprise offering arrives. A leather-wrapped bundle carried by the oldest man in the group, tied with sinew and reverence. He opens it slowly, like it contains treasure or teeth. Inside, dried strips of something grayish, fibrous, impossibly old. Jerky. Ancient jerky. Someone offers you a piece. You chew. It resists at first, then gives up. Smoky, spiced with something bitter, possibly ash, possibly herbs, possibly regret. And that's when you hear it, a low trumpet from somewhere far off. A rumble, not thunder, not wind, a mammoth. You freeze meat halfway to your mouth. No one moves, no one speaks. It calls again. Deep, mournful, like a foghorn through time. No one goes to investigate, no one grabs a spear. They all just sit and eat and let the sound pass by like thunder on the horizon. Because they know what you now understand. That's not dinner, that's a story waiting to happen to someone else. And tonight you're too full to be a myth. You wake up to buzzing. Not poetic bird song, not gentle rustling leaves, just buzzing, thick, persistent, and somehow inside your ears. You swat at your face, smear something sticky across your cheek, and sit up with the grace of someone who's been sleeping on a rock disguised as a pillow. Your mouth tastes like roasted regret and slightly spoiled berries. Your fingers are still oily from last night's pork. The fire has gone out, again. Smoke curls from a pile of gray ash and the air smells like wet earth and feet. Someone nearby is snoring through their mouth in a way that sounds like a dying elk. Someone else is already poking through the leftover bones from dinner looking for anything worth gnawing. You stretch. Something pops. Possibly your back. Possibly your dignity. And then, as if summoned by your semi-conscious hunger, someone calls out from the trees with a note of cautious excitement. It's the foragers. They're back. You walk over and find a cluster of your group gathered around a hide sack filled with what can only be described as suspiciously colorful things. Roots, leaves, and of course mushrooms. But the real prize is a clutch of pale eggs still nestled in scraps of moss. And something else. Berries. Tiny blue-black, glossy like wet marbles. A woman holds them up proudly. Everyone leans in. There's a shared hush, the kind that only comes when you're trying to remember whether a plant made someone vomit last season. Berries are dangerous in the prehistoric world. They look innocent, sure, but eat the wrong ones and you'll be hugging the dirt like it's a long-lost relative. Historians still argue whether early humans had a formal method of identifying edibility or whether it mostly came down to watch who doesn't die. Someone gestures for you to try one. Naturally. You pluck a berry and roll it between your fingers. It's firm, smooth, smells like nothing. You glance around. No one else is volunteering. Of course not. You're the new one, the taste tester. The canary in the foraging mine. You pop it into your mouth. Sweet. Surprisingly sweet. Not cloying, just soft and earthy like the idea of dessert if dessert grew on bushes and sometimes caused hallucinations. You wait. Count to 10. No tingling. No immediate gag reflex. No psychedelic visuals. You give a small nod. Relieved, everyone dives in. The foragers pass around the rest of the morning hall tubers that look like angry potatoes, some unfamiliar leaves that smell like licorice and grass, and a mysterious pouch filled with what can only be described as slime with ambition. It's honey, kind of. Actually, it's bee larva mash with wild nectar. You stare at it for a moment, unsure where you end and your dignity begins. But someone dips a finger in and smacks their lips like it's a 5-star dessert. You follow. The texture is wrong. Slippery, pulpy, too warm. But the flavor strangely rich. A little tangy. It reminds you of cough syrup with dreams. Your stomach seems into it, though. Maybe because it didn't require hunting or chewing or getting yelled at by elders. A few kids gather sticks and start smacking them against trees. One boy finds an old log and flips it, revealing a swarming buffet of beetles and larvae. They all squeal with delight. You try to look excited. Here's the thing no one tells you: in school, bugs were on the menu long before kale. Rich in protein, easy to find. No chasing required, just bravery and a flexible gag reflex. Someone hands you a flat charred cricket on a piece of bark, like a prehistoric canapé. You stare at it. The legs are still attached. The eyes seem judgmental. You eat it. Crunchy, nutty, salty somehow. Not bad. You've had worse appetizers at weddings. And then someone brings out the weirdest delicacy of all, the half-digested plant matter from a ruminant's stomach. Yes, really. Apparently the theory is this: animals like goats and deer can digest things that humans can't. But if you catch them mid-process, before it fully breaks down, you can sort of borrow their effort. So now you're staring into a warm pouch of goat stomach salad. A young woman offers it to you like it's fine wine. You take a small scoop and bring it to your lips. It smells like compost. You sip. It tastes like compost. And yet, your body perks up. There's iron, calcium, trace minerals, basically a nutrient bomb, just wrapped in a flavor that feels like it's scolding you for your choices. You sit back chewing thoughtfully. Someone claps a rhythm. A couple of kids start stomping along. Someone else hums. It's not a celebration, not quite, but there's an energy now. That kind of sleepy joy that happens when nobody's starving for once. The vibe is warm, companionable, almost happy. And then comes the cough, a soft one, from the woman who brought the berries. Everyone freezes. You all glance over. She waves a hand, shrugs, and smiles. Just something in her throat, she says. She's fine. Probably. Still, everyone gets a little quieter after that. Berries always a gamble. You get up and walk toward the river. The path is slick with mud carved by thousands of bare feet before yours. Dragonflies hover above the reeds. You squat by the water, splash some on your face, and look at your reflection. You barely recognize yourself. Dirt-streaked cheeks, hair like moss, a faint smear of honey or berry juice on your chin. But you're not flinching anymore, not watching the tree line like it wants to eat you. You're adapting, kind of. You're not dead. You're fed. You're learning which bugs crunch, which leaves itch, and which smiles mean you go first. And for now, that's enough. You don't intend to follow the others into the swamp. But you blink and somehow your feet are ankle-deep in mud and your legs are being enthusiastically nibbled by mosquitoes the size of prehistoric raisins. There's no trail here, just the suggestion of a direction, a sense that something edible might be hiding in the damp and the murk and the buzzing. You've learned by now if someone starts walking with a basket, you walk too. Not because you want to, because not walking means missing out, and missing out means going to bed with a stomach that sounds like distant thunder. The swamp is a different world. The air is thicker. The green is greener, almost unnatural, like it's been turned up too far on a screen. Every step makes a noise, squelch, slurp, splash. Something pops under your foot. You choose not to investigate. A woman points at a patch of floating reeds and gestures for silence. You lean in, trying to see what she sees. Then motion, a ripple, a flick. Something long and sinuous slides through the water. It disappears again before your brain can decide if it was a fish, a snake, or a shared hallucination brought on by fermented goat milk. They think it's an eel. Dinner. The others fan out, weaving nets from reeds and vines. You're handed a bundle and told to help. It's a mess of knots and hope. You wade into the shallows and lower the net, trying not to think about what else is under there with you. The mud sucks at your ankles like it has a grudge. Something cold and slimy brushes your shin. You flinch, splash, and immediately everyone glares at you. It's a very quiet hunt. You try again. This time slower, gentler. The water settles. You breathe through your mouth. You watch the net. Time drips like the water off the reeds. And then wait. Something pulls. Not strong, not panicked. Just there. You lift the net. A tangle of plants, a stick, a small, furious frog, and an eel. Slippery, dark, twisting like it regrets every decision that led it here. Victory. You hold it up. The woman who spotted it gives a rare smile. Others nod, impressed. The eel is unceremoniously smacked against a rock until it stops moving. You hand it over and try not to think about its little glassy eyes now frozen mid-surprise. While the eel is dispatched and prepared, i.e. skinned with a stone and optimism, you're sent after the other prize of the swamp eggs. Yes. Swamp eggs. Birds, you're told. Or maybe turtles. Possibly snakes. The translation is murky. What's clear is this: they're edible, they're fragile, and they're hiding somewhere in the reeds. You creep through the marsh, parting tall grasses with your hands. Every few feet you crouch, peek, listen. The frogs go silent. The flies get louder. You spot a mound of mud half covered in slime and leaves. You brush it aside, and yes, there they are, 4 oblong off-white eggs, warm to the touch. You lift them gently one by one, nestling them in a makeshift pouch of leaves and moss. You return to camp triumphant. For the first time, people see you not as a liability, but as someone who brings things, not just chews them. The eel goes on the fire. The eggs are boiled in a stone bowl heated with glowing rocks plucked from the coals. You sit and watch the water bubble, the smell of river and protein rising together into something that almost smells like soup. One elder mashes wild garlic into a paste and rubs it onto the eel meat. Another grinds some kind of bitter root over the eggs. You're starting to understand now, prehistoric cuisine isn't flavorless. It's resourceful. They use what they have. Sometimes that's herbs, sometimes that's bark, sometimes it's ashes or clay or the stomach lining of a deer, but always there's thought. You're handed a skewer of eel. The flesh is white, soft, flaky. A little fishy, a little earthy. The garlic paste adds bite. You chew, slowly savoring. You close your eyes, and for a moment you forget the bugs, the mud, the aching legs. This is good. Someone taps you and offers half of a boiled egg. The yolk is darker than you're used to. Creamy, not powdery. It tastes rich, almost decadent. You nod in thanks because talking with your mouth full is universal and timelessly rude. After dinner, you help clean up, which here means scraping bones into a pit, tossing shells into the fire, and rinsing your hands in river water that looks only mildly suspicious. The group gathers in a circle again, not to eat, to rest, to process, to laugh softly and lean against each other in the blue twilight. One of the elders takes a long, hollow reed and begins to blow gently across the top. A low, mournful sound emerges somewhere between a flute and a sigh. Others hum along. No words, just sound. Music prehistoric edition. You let it wash over you. You're not thinking about the mud between your toes anymore, or the taste of bugs, or the fact that you're basically wearing a blanket with holes. You're full. You're safe. And for now, that's all anyone here ever asks for. The next morning begins the same way, with aching limbs, an empty stomach, and a suspicious smell in the air. But this time it's not smoke, it's roasted something small, something chirpy. You sit up, rubbing grit from your eyes, and spot 2 children crouched near the fire, turning a flat rock like a pan. On top of it, lined up in a neat row, are a handful of bugs, big ones. Shiny black beetles crisping on the hot surface like prehistoric tapas. You blink. They grin. One picks up a beetle by the leg, pops it in her mouth, and crunches down with the kind of satisfaction that can only come from knowing grown-ups are watching and mildly horrified. And now you realize this is breakfast. Again. Bugs aren't a joke here. They're food. Real food. Reliable food. Easy to catch, rich in protein, no spear required. You don't even have to outrun them. Just find a log, flip it, and feast. Historians still argue whether bug eating was a widespread survival strategy or a cultural adaptation in certain regions. But either way, the bugs didn't stand a chance. You're offered a beetle. It's shiny, it's roasted, it smells nutty. You take it, crunch, and surprisingly, it's not terrible. The exoskeleton gives like a thin chip. Inside, earthy, warm, slightly gritty, but not unpleasant. Somewhere between burnt toast and almonds, with legs. Others gather around, sharing more insects, crickets, grubs, even a scorpion roasted on a stick, its tail curled like a warning. Someone passes you a small clay bowl filled with something that looks like mashed avocado but smells like wet leaves. It's a paste made from ground locusts, wild herbs, and crushed seeds. Spreadable protein. You scoop a bit onto a leaf, fold it like a prehistoric taco, and bite. It's tangy, sharp, A little spicy if plants can be spicy before chili peppers are invented. And again, you're amazed. Your modern stomach, so used to labeling things as gross, is actually okay with this. Not thrilled, but respectful. After breakfast, the day's work begins: foraging, cooking, scraping hides, reshaping tools. You're sent with a small group to the edge of the forest to flip over rocks and logs. Bug hunting. Again. This time, you're not just watching. You lift a fallen branch and see a cluster of pale, wriggling grubs curled into the damp earth. One twitches. You hesitate. A woman next to you leans down and scoops them up barehanded. She offers you one. You try not to look directly at it. They roast fast, squirmy one moment, then crispy the next. You eat one fresh off the fire. It bursts in your mouth like a meaty grape. You chew slowly. It's fatty, soft, slightly smoky, like scrambled eggs and lard had a baby. The group moves deeper into the brush. One man starts digging at the base of a tree. He explains through grunts and gestures that sometimes wild tubers grow here. Big ones. Long as your arm. They're hard to find, harder to dig, but worth it. Fuel for the body, especially good if you're planning to go days without meat. So you dig. Your fingers cramp. Your nails fill with mud. But eventually you strike something hard. You scrape and wiggle and finally pull free a knobby, twisted root that smells like dirt and hope. You carry it back proudly. Someone roasts it in the coals. The skin blackens, the inside steams. When you bite into it, the flavor is simple. Warm, starchy, slightly sweet. Not candy sweet, just enough to be comforting. Like a prehistoric sweet potato with trust issues. Back at camp, someone is boiling something in a hide-lined pit. Yes, boiling. They drop hot rocks into water-filled stomach linings propped up with sticks. You lean over and peer inside. Soup. Bug soup. Also bark, herbs, bones, and a few unidentifiable floaty bits. But it smells good. Surprisingly savory. You sip. It's rich. Deep. Like a forest after rain. You don't ask what the chewy part is. You don't want to know. Nearby children are playing with a dead beetle the size of a fist. They race it across the dirt, giggling. One puts a flower crown on its shell. You smile despite yourself. And then someone starts singing. It's a low chant, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Others join in. You don't know the words, no one really knows the words, but the melody wraps around you like smoke. It's not about anything specific, not about gods or wars or heroes. It's about living, eating, waiting, being. Bug song, bug day, bug life. You lie back on the ground and let the sound carry you. The bugs are still chirping in the grass. Someone's still chewing near your ear. But you feel calm, full in the weirdest possible way. Because here's the truth, no one tells you about prehistoric life. It wasn't all terror and starvation. Sometimes it was just a good fire, a crunchy bug, and a group of people who shared what they had. And honestly, that's enough. Later that same afternoon, someone returns from the woods with a bundle tied in gut string held at arm's length like it might explode. They set it gently on a flat stone, untie it with care, and peel back the layers of hide. The smell hits you first. It's like a goat died hugging a compost heap and then fermented for fun. You take an instinctive step back, nose wrinkling. Others crowd around, eyes gleaming with anticipation. They lean in. Some smile. One even claps softly. It's a delicacy, apparently. What you're looking at is a wad of half-digested plant matter scooped from the stomach of a recently killed animal, probably a deer or a goat, and left to ferment in its own pouch for a few days. Or a week. Or a number of days no one agrees on. Historians still argue whether this practice was for nutrition, digestion assistance, or just a particularly adventurous form of food preservation. Either way, it's here. It's ready. And someone hands you a piece. The texture is unexplainable. Wet hay meets lukewarm pudding. You chew. It fights back at first, then dissolves into a slurry of bitterness, salt, and something strangely floral. You suppress a gag, barely. Others moan in appreciation. You nod politely like someone who understands the wine list, but is internally screaming. After the stomach salad adventure, someone suggests cooking. Not the fire kind, too smoky, too slow, but cold curing. They've brought out a stretched animal skin covered in a thin layer of salt scraped from dried lakebed clay. Across it they lay strips of meat, squirrel, eel, some bird you can't identify by shape or smell. The meat will sit in the sun for days, slowly drying, curing in the open air. Bugs will land on it. They'll be waved away. Some will stay. Nature is involved at every step. You ask how they know when it's ready. They shrug. If it's chewy and doesn't kill anyone, it's ready. You move on. Someone invites you to help with fish, though the term fish is generous. These are tiny, bone-filled river creatures barely the size of your thumb. You watch as a woman slits their bellies with a sharp chip of obsidian, scoops out the innards and lays them on a rack made of twigs. They'll smoke slowly over a fire fed with damp moss. You didn't know moss smoked so well, but here it is, billowing pale plumes with a smell that reminds you of wet sweaters and burnt toast. While they smoke, you're offered a different challenge. Shell crushing. A basket of snail shells, some no bigger than a fingernail, others larger than walnuts, waits beside a flat stone. Your job, crack them open without destroying the insides. It's harder than it sounds. The shell resists, and when it does, give it off and shatters completely. After a few botched attempts and one unfortunate thumb injury, you finally produce a clean crack and a usable snail. Victory. You eat it raw. It's slimy, earthy, slightly crunchy from residual grit. You chase it with a sip of swamp water tea and a mouthful of tuber paste. You're starting to understand prehistoric cuisine. It's not about taste, it's about resourcefulness. It's about calories per square inch. About not starving. About learning through trial and intestinal error what the land can give without asking first. You sit beside the fire. The smoked fish smell is stronger now, more inviting. A few pieces are already dry enough to chew. You try one. Salty, bony. But the flavor clings to your tongue like it means it. You nod to the woman who made it. She nods back. Respect shared in silence. The group relaxes again. The sun hangs low in the sky. The light shifts from harsh to golden. Shadows lengthen. Someone brings out a flute made from a bird's bone. It whistles softly, a thin, reedy melody that dances through the trees. Others hum along. Someone taps a rhythm on their chest with a stick. It's not a song with a beginning or an end. It's a feeling, a pattern, a way to say we made it through another day. You lie back and let the sounds roll over you. The rustle of wind, the sigh of fire, the soft snore of someone who accidentally ate 3 fermented snails and immediately passed out. You close your eyes and breathe in. Earth, smoke, salt, life. No clocks, no notifications. Just you and the people who've accepted you, not for your skills. You don't have many, not for your fashion sense. You're currently wearing a deer hide with suspicious stains, but because you showed up. You shared the food. You tried the weird things. You listened to the stories. And that's enough. You might not stay here forever, but tonight you belong. Evening falls like a slow exhale. The fire pops gently. A few embers float upward, caught in the updraft like tiny spirits making their way to somewhere quieter. You're sitting cross-legged, belly full of questionable snails and smoky fish, watching someone stir something thick and brown in a stone bowl with an old rib bone. No one tells you what it is. That's probably for the best. You lean back against a log, trying to ignore the way it shifts slightly under your weight. Probably ants. Probably harmless. Maybe. The person with the bowl gestures for you to try a taste. It's handed to you with an expectant look. You take a deep sniff. It smells pungent, sharp, Familiar in the way something you've never eaten before somehow reminds you of compost onions and childhood disappointment. Still, you're too far in to back out now. You dip a finger, taste it. It's bitter, strong. A kick to the teeth, then a warm slide down your throat. You cough. Someone laughs. It's root paste, they explain in a mix of words and gestures. Crushed wild horseradish, a pick-me-up, a cleanse. Also probably a mild poison, but only sometimes. Historians still argue whether ancient foods like this were deliberately medicinal or just eaten because, frankly, there wasn't much else. Either way, your sinuses are now painfully clear. Later, someone passes around a pouch made of woven grass, damp and faintly humming. You peer inside. It's alive. No, not metaphorically, genuinely. Grubs. Squirming, plump, writhing in damp leaves like they've just woken up from a nap and are furious about it. You look up. Everyone's watching you again. Because of course they are. You pick the least active one. It's warm, soft. It curls slightly around your fingertip as if to say, "Please reconsider." You don't. You drop it in your mouth, close your eyes, and bite. It pops. Sweet in a way that surprises you. Creamy inside like nut butter with commitment issues. Not your favorite, but not the worst. And in some twisted way, you now understand why this is prized. It's pure energy. Fat, protein, moisture. All in one convenient wriggling package. You wash it down with a sip of bog water and move on with your life. Across the fire, someone is grinding something between two flat stones. You crawl over to investigate. It's seeds. Wild barley, mostly with a few stray bits of gravel because prehistoric hygiene isn't exactly regulated. They're making a kind of paste, adding water, forming small cakes. Flatbread, the original. It smells like wet toast and dust. They slap the cakes onto a hot stone beside the fire. They bubble a little crack around the edges. Someone tosses a pinch of salt clay onto one for extra flavor. You try one. It's bland, dry, gets stuck between your teeth in ways modern food never dares. But it fills you, which is the point. Everything here is utilitarian. Every bite has a purpose. There's no garnish, no plating, no food blogs. Just shared work, shared heat, shared satisfaction. Someone tells a story, not in words you understand, but with sound gesture rhythm. A tale about a boy who stole a deer's shadow and had to give it back before the moon disappeared. Or something like that. The details are hazy, but the point is clear. It's about hunger, longing, and learning things the hard way. You laugh at the right parts, gasp when others do. You feel included, even if you're only catching every fifth idea. The story ends with a cheer, a drum beat, a handful of roasted bugs tossed into the air like confetti. One lands in your lap. You eat it. Reflex now. As night deepens, the group thins. Some wander to their sleeping nests. Others curl into the dirt where they sit. You're handed a fur, scratchy and warm, and find a spot by the fire to curl into. But then, just as you're beginning to drift, someone presses a small object into your hand. A pouch, warm, damp, inside something special. It's the aged contents of an animal's second stomach, yes, second. Not just fermented, but fermented inside another stomach, then wrapped, tied, buried, and forgotten for just the right number of days. The result, a gelatinous lump that smells like betrayal. They call it cheese. Or the ancestor of it anyway. Historians still argue whether this counts as the beginning of cheese making or just a happy accident someone dared others to repeat. Either way, you're now holding history's most aggressive snack. You tear off a small piece, squish it slightly, and take a bite. The taste is indescribable, funky, salty, like sour yogurt mixed with wet fur. But your body responds. Your eyes water, but your stomach growls in approval. You've crossed a threshold now. There's no going back to granola bars after this. You smile unironically. And someone smiles back, because you're not just a guest anymore. You're a participant, a forager, a taster, a small hungry part of something ancient and messy and deeply alive. By now you've learned that fire is not just heat, it's theater. Tonight someone's taken the liberty of building a second fire pit, not for warmth, not even for light, but for cooking, real cooking, or at least the prehistoric version of a dinner party. This one involves actual preparation, not just chewing things you found near your foot. The star of the show, a freshly trapped bird. You don't recognize the species. It's feathery, angry. Recently deceased, about the size of a small chicken if chickens were half bone and all attitude. Someone's already plucked it mostly. A few rogue feathers still cling to its feet like it died mid-complaint. It's being roasted on a spit made of green wood. Slowly, carefully. Someone is even basting it with rendered fat dripped from a pouch made of cured stomach. There are herbs, 2 wild ones with names you don't know and flavors you've only ever described as leafy or This is special. You're handed a small flatbread, the same dusty barley cake from earlier, but this time warm, folded, and surprisingly soft. A smear of something brown and savory is added, mashed tuber seasoned with wild garlic, ground nuts, and what smells like charred onion. It's not just dinner. It's craft. And then the bird is done. Crackling browned juices dripping into the fire. The skin glistens. It smells real. Familiar, like something your body remembers from a time long before you ever lived. They carve it with a blade of sharpened bone. No forks, no plating, just pieces torn and passed by hands still hot. The breast is stringy but rich. The leg tastes like effort. You chew slowly, savoring each bite like it might be your last, because let's face it, it very well could be. Across from you, someone's grilling something else. A handful of skewered frogs. Yes, frogs. Skinless, spindly, folded over like tiny acrobats in a heated yoga class. They sizzle as the flames lick at their legs. You're handed one and the meat falls from the bone with surprising tenderness. It tastes, well, like everything else you've eaten lately, slightly muddy, slightly smoky, and entirely dependent on how hungry you are. Tonight it's delicious. There's laughter around the fire, real laughter. Big belly sounds unfiltered and unhurried. Someone makes a joke, possibly at your expense given the glances, but it's affectionate. You're the odd one, but you're their odd one now. The newcomer who eats bugs and doesn't complain. Much. A woman offers you a pinch of salt. Salt. It's precious. Not the refined kind you know, but grayish flakes chipped from rocks near a dried-up riverbed. She adds a dusting to your frog leg and suddenly, boom. Flavor. Your mouth lights up. Your brain throws a party. You nod to her like she just performed a miracle, and honestly, she did. Salt isn't just seasoning here, it's preservation, currency, power. Wars have been fought over it, even if no one around this fire knows what a war is yet. They just know their food tastes better when it sparkles a little. After dinner, the cleanup is minimal. There are no dishes, no plastic wrap. Just bones tossed into the coals and fat wiped from fingers onto furs already too dirty to care. One man crushes a handful of charred tuber chips and throws them into the air. The children shriek with joy, trying to catch them in their mouths. You lean back against a log that's somehow less ant-infested than usual and sigh. Deeply. Happily. Then someone brings out the surprise. A hollow gourd filled with liquid. It sloshes when they move it. They uncork the top, just a wad of grass, and the smell hits you like a prehistoric party. Fermented berry drink. You're not sure if it's wine or vinegar or something in between, but you take a sip. It's fizzy, sweet, sharp, and very, very effective. Your limbs go warm. Your head starts to sway. Someone starts a low song and you hum along without knowing the words. You don't have to. The melody is enough. The stars come out brighter than you've ever seen them. No lamps, no glow from a city, just firelight and sky. You lie on your back in the dirt, staring up at infinity with frog grease on your fingers and warmth in your belly. You never expected this to feel like home, but here you are. There's one more bite before sleep, a scrap of dried meat, chewy and smoky from the batch started 3 days ago. You suck on it like candy, letting it soften slowly. You wonder what it is. Someone says weasel. You nod and keep chewing, because by now you've learned not to ask. You just eat and trust the fire. You wake to rain, not a storm, not thunder and drama. Just that soft rhythmic patter of droplets on leaves, on hides, on your tangled, slightly damp hair. It seeps into the earth, slowly darkening everything, bringing with it the fresh green smell of clean air and new beginnings. You lie there a moment, eyes closed, letting the world soak itself around you. Someone is already up. You hear quiet movement, sticks being arranged, coals stirred, wet furs shaken out. Rain doesn't stop the day here. It just changes the tempo. You sit up, stretch. Something in your back cracks. Possibly important, possibly decorative. The fire's out, naturally. But that doesn't mean breakfast is canceled. A woman with arms like braided rope is crouched near a steaming pit. She's pulled a tarp of bark and hied off what looks like a bundle of something. It's round, gray, lumpy, and apparently food. You walk closer. It's a cache meat and roots wrapped in leaves buried days ago in warm earth lined with coals and hot stones. The heat has been slow cooking everything beneath the surface. Now it's ready. You watch as she unpacks it, tender chunks of boar meat, roots turned soft, and sweet bits of wild onion practically melting on contact. Steam billows up like an offering to the forest. This is prehistoric slow cooking. No knobs, no timers, just memory and instinct. She hands you a chunk of meat wrapped in a leaf. It's hot, juicy, falls apart at the touch. You take a bite. It's rich, almost buttery, flavored with ash, soil, and whatever plant she used for seasoning. Possibly nettle, possibly luck. You close your eyes as you chew. This isn't just food. It's warmth, comfort, belonging. The others gather slowly. No one rushes. There's no need. The rain keeps everything soft and slow. A child catches water in a bowl made from a carved-out gourd and drinks like it's magic. You sip some too. It tastes cleaner than anything from a bottle ever has. Then comes the surprise. Someone unrolls a tightly sealed pouch and reveals the morning's treasure honey. Not the clear golden kind from plastic bears. This is thick, dark, full of wax and tiny bee legs, raw and wild and slightly terrifying. It smells like flowers and fear. They pass it around. You dip a bit of root into it. The contrast is absurd, sugary, earthy, sticky. You lick your fingers like a child grinning. Someone chuckles. They get it. Honey is rare here, precious. Sometimes traded, sometimes stumbled upon. Historians still argue whether it was harvested regularly or seen as a rare, dangerous treat. You decide it's worth every sting. A few others start mixing things, tuber paste, smashed berries, a splash of fermented goat milk. The result? A proto-porridge spooned into bark bowls with sticks shaped like paddles. You try it. It's weird, and also oddly satisfying. The rain softens. Mist curls through the trees. Someone stirs the fire back to life, smoke curling upward, lazily blending with the clouds. Later in the day, the group goes foraging again. You follow feet squelching in mud, hair dripping. You find mushrooms, wild greens, a bird's nest filled with tiny pink-feathered chicks that no one touches. They're too young. The mother squawks from a branch above, and you all move on in silence. Ethics, it seems, are older than language. You also find snails. Loads of them clinging to the wet undersides of leaves like soft, slimy pearls. They're collected in silence. Someone hums a tune while they work. You join in without knowing the notes. Back at camp, the snails are cleaned, boiled in salted water, fried on flat stones. You eat one. It's chewy, a little grassy, kind of like mushrooms wearing tiny leather jackets. You help pound roots into a paste using a rock shaped perfectly for your hand. There's a rhythm to it. Thud, thud, scrape. It feels ancient, important. Dinner is modest tonight. Root cakes, greens wilted in the coals, leftover meat shredded and wrapped in leaves like prehistoric tacos. And dessert, yes, dessert is honey drizzled over roasted nuts. Someone hands you a hot stone to crack them. You fumble, drop one, retrieve it, succeed. The nut is smoky, sweet, buttery. You feel absurdly proud. You sit by the fire as twilight settles in. Bugs buzz, the last drops of rain fall. Someone plays a tune on a bone whistle that sounds like the wind trying to remember something. And in that moment, you realize how different food feels here. It's not a transaction, not a product. It's connection. You helped dig it, cook it, eat it, you shared it. You laughed through the weird parts. You endured the squishy ones. And now, full and warm, you lean back and stare at the stars breaking through the mist above the trees. You're not thinking about labels or diets or ingredients you can't pronounce. You're thinking about that honey. And maybe, just maybe, you'll dream about bees. You wake with sunlight on your face and a strange sensation on your cheek. You reach up, still half asleep, and brush off a stray beetle who was clearly under the impression that your head was an acceptable place to nap. You blink into the daylight. It's warm. The air smells like damp moss and whatever's currently burning in the cooking fire. You roll over and groan softly. Your stomach is already curious about breakfast. A dangerous curiosity given what breakfast usually means here. Today, though, something's different. There's a buzz of anticipation in the camp, a feeling in the air like something's being planned, something organized. You see bundles being packed, spears gathered, baskets sorted. There's chatter louder than usual. Focused. You ask what's happening? Trade. Not a big event, just a meeting with another nearby group. Happens every few weeks, weather permitting. They bring fish or salt, sometimes strange fruits. Your people bring smoked meat, tools, gossip. Trade in the prehistoric world isn't currency. It's connection. It's survival. You're invited along, you the semi-competent eater of bugs, the sometimes useful forager, the surprisingly quiet walking stomach. It's an honor. Kind of. The journey is short, just a few hills and a stretch of forest, but it's muddy and you slip twice. On purpose, maybe. No one helps you up, but a few people grin. You're part of the group now. You get to fall with dignity. At the meeting place, the two groups approach each other cautiously. Not hostile, just wary. They don't wave. They don't hug. They nod. They glance. Then someone pulls out a bundle of dried fish tied with sinew and still carrying a faint smell of the sea. Your group lays down its offering, strips of smoked squirrel and a small sack of roasted seeds. The exchange is quiet, practical, efficient. But then something new. One of them, an older woman, unrolls a pouch and reveals several round objects. Fruit, bright, orange, bruised but stunning against the greens and browns of the forest. You haven't seen color like this in days. You're allowed to take one. You do reverently. It's soft in your hand, slightly sticky. You bite into it. Sweet, juicy, acidic in a way that wakes up every tired corner of your mouth. You close your eyes and chew slowly, trying not to make the sound of someone falling in love with a piece of produce. The woman watches you, smiles. You give her a piece of your squirrel meat in return. She accepts it like it's treasure. Maybe it is. This is how knowledge moves. Through food, through sharing, through trade that carries not just goods but methods. One of your group members starts asking questions about how the fruit grows. Another points at the drying nets the other group uses for fish. There's pantomime, grunting, laughing, no translators, just intention. You realize that even thousands of years ago, people weren't hoarding, they were collaborating. Historians still argue whether prehistoric trade was widespread or incidental, but standing here, you can feel it. It wasn't just about need. It was about novelty, curiosity, discovery. Someone offers you a new kind of nut, pale and spiral-shaped. You try it. Crunchy, a little bitter. Good with honey, someone gestures. You nod. Everything's better with honey. By midday, the exchange is over. The bundles are packed. Farewells are short. Just a few grunts and hand gestures that might mean thanks or see you when the moon is smaller. You walk back with a bag full of fish, 2 extra fruits, and something wrapped in leaves that smells like moldy cheese. You're told not to open it until dinner. You take their word for it. Back at camp, the excitement is real. Everyone gathers to see the haul. The fish is laid out to smoke. The nuts are roasted over hot stones and the fruit shared like a festival prize. You get a second piece. You eat it slower this time. You savor it like it might be the last sweet thing you'll ever know. That night dinner is an odd mixture. Squirrel with salty fish, fruit slices over root mash, and the mystery bundle mushrooms, of a kind your group's never seen before. There is, of course, a vote. Try it now or wait and test it on the goats. Everyone looks at you, naturally. You cut a slice, hold it to your nose. It smells earthy, strong, like something that grew under a tree that resents being touched. You eat it. Everyone watches, you wait. No dizziness, no flashes of ancestral trauma, just warmth, a bit of spice, a slow blooming in your chest like someone lit a candle behind your ribs. The group cheers softly. One person claps. Approved. The mushrooms are diced, stewed with herbs, and served with the smoked fish. The result? A meal that tastes like rain and fire and strange friendships. You sit near the flames afterward, picking bits of fruit skin from your teeth, and watch someone sketch in the dirt with a stick a crude map of the trail you took today. Trade routes, you realize, don't always start with gold. Sometimes they start with squirrel and a smile. And sometimes that's enough to keep history moving. You don't mean to eavesdrop, but when 2 people start arguing over a berry bush near the edge of camp, it's hard not to notice. Especially when one of them keeps gesturing dramatically, waving what appears to be a shriveled berry like it's a legal document. You inch closer under the pretense of adjusting your hide belt, which, by the way, still doesn't stay upright. And you listen. The disagreement is simple, prehistoric, and completely valid. Are these berries edible, or are they the same ones that made Uncle What's-His-Name see invisible birds for 2 days last season? One woman insists they're safe if you crush the seeds, if you dry them first, and if you chant while stirring them. The other snorts. Says berries don't care about chanting. What they care about is whether the last person who ate them woke up again. Fair point. This kind of conversation happens more often than you'd expect. Because out here, plants don't come with labels, no stickers, no non-GMO gluten-free guarantees. Every bite you take is a vote of confidence in your gut and in whoever last survived the recipe. Historians still argue whether knowledge of wild edibles was passed through generations with accuracy, or whether entire families just played culinary roulette every spring. You're beginning to suspect it was a little of both. The elders are called over to settle the debate. They smell the berries, taste tiny amounts. One person rubs the juice on their skin and waits to see if it tingles. There's a lot of squinting, a lot of shrugging. A decision is made. The berries are probably fine. And just like that, they're added to the stew. Lunch is served an hour later, the same root mash as always, now with a suspicious reddish swirl through it. You eat slowly, you wait, you survive. The berries taste like commitment. Tart, slightly gritty. They don't ruin the stew, but they don't improve it either. You quietly wish for more fish. Later that day, you help with a task that feels deceptively modern food storage. Turns out, even without fridges or shelves, prehistoric humans had methods. You follow two others to the edge of the forest where they begin digging a hole deep wide lined with dry leaves and stone. A pit. You learn that certain foods, especially meats and oily roots, are wrapped in bark and buried here. Cool, dark, undisturbed. They'll be checked in a few days. If they smell okay, they're dinner. If they smell like wet feet and betrayal, they become a cautionary tale. One of the more enthusiastic elders insists on showing you a long-term storage method. It involves stuffing cooked meat into a hollowed-out bone, sealing it with fat, then burying the entire thing in clay and ash. You ask how long it keeps, they say. Until the next rain, or the one after that. Vague, but weirdly comforting. You carry a bundle of smoked fish to the storage pit and lower it in. As you do, you realize this isn't just about keeping food safe, it's about trust. Trust that the earth will stay cold, that no animals will dig it up, that someone will remember where you buried it. Someone scratches a symbol onto a nearby tree, a mark, a memory, a prehistoric do not disturb sign. Back at camp, the mood is festive. Someone found a bee's nest. It's mostly intact. There are a few stings, but the prize wild honey, thick and golden, full of pollen and fragments of comb. It's passed around reverently. You get a scoop on a flat rock paired with roasted grasshoppers. You stare at them. They stare back. You eat them anyway. They're crispy. The honey clings to their legs. It's like eating a very determined cereal. Not bad if you don't think about it. Evening brings cooler air and storytelling. A man sits near the fire with a woven basket on his lap filled with bone shells and carved stones. He shakes it once like dice. Then he pulls out 3 pieces and lines them up. Everyone watches. This is dinner theater. The story begins. You don't understand the words, but you get the rhythm. It's about food, you think, about hunger, about finding a tree that feeds you and never taking more than you need. The message is clear: eating is sacred, and sharing even more so. As the tale ends, someone presses a roasted nut into your palm. You eat it silently. You understand. Afterward, you help clean up. Bones are tossed into the fire, scraps are saved. Someone starts humming again. You lie on your side head on a bundle of hides and watch the embers pulse like sleeping stars. Your belly is full. Your limbs are sore. Your heart unexpectedly feels whole. Food here isn't just survival, it's language, it's family. It's history passed down not in books, but in bowls. You close your eyes listening to the night noises, the crackle of fire, the whisper of leaves, the occasional crunch of someone sneaking a leftover bug. And you smile. Because tonight you didn't just eat, you belonged. You wake to laughter. Not loud, not chaotic, just the soft, amused kind. A giggle snort here, a chuckle there. You sit up slowly, rubbing sleep from your face, and find that a group has gathered near the edge of the camp, hunched over something on the ground. You wander closer. It's a frog. Not cooked, not skewered, not flayed. Alive, fat, displeased. A child pokes it gently with a stick, and it makes a noise so indignant that the entire group erupts again into sleepy laughter. The frog looks directly at you as if asking for legal representation. You nudge it gently into the underbrush and earn a few nods of approval. Not all creatures are food, apparently. Some are just jokes. And this one has earned its reprieve. Breakfast is creative today. Someone has tried mixing leftover porridge with crushed nuts and baking it on a hot stone. The result is a kind of brittle cake, flat, uneven, a little burnt on one side and full of texture. You chew cautiously. It's crunchy, sticky, oddly satisfying. And most importantly, no beetles. Someone hands you a handful of dried greens, thin, wiry, vaguely seaweedy. You try one. It's salty, crispy, like prehistoric kale chips. You ask how they made them. You're shown a rack of twigs by the fire and told with a shrug wind. You nod as if this is obvious. A few others are sorting berries. You recognize most of them sour red ones, dark purple clusters, a few mystery kinds that still require a volunteer. One child points to a berry, squints at you, and says something that might mean, "Remember the time you hallucinated." You both laugh. By now, food isn't just something you eat. It's part of the rhythm, the texture of your days. Later, you're invited on another gathering trip. Today's focus tubers. You've seen them before, eaten them, chewed them with all the enthusiasm of a woodchuck in dental distress. But now you get to dig them. You're handed a pointed stick and shown how to jab it into the soil, just right angle pressure twist. Like surgery, but with more mud. It's sweaty work. And the tubers aren't always where you expect them. You dig and dig sometimes for 10 minutes only to find a rock, or a worm, or nothing at all. But then there it is, a fat, knobby root about the size of your forearm, streaked with red and brown, smelling faintly of damp sugar. Victory. Back at camp, the tubers are peeled with shell fragments and roasted in the embers until the skin blisters and splits. The inside is soft, almost creamy, like a prehistoric sweet potato, just without butter, salt, or the mild joy of air conditioning. You burn your fingers pulling one from the fire, then blow on it dramatically like you're cooling down pizza. No one laughs. They've all done the same. While the tubers roast, someone presents a surprise eggs. Bird eggs from a hidden nest found near the creek, still warm when discovered, still intact. One has a tiny feather stuck to it. They're boiled in a pouch with hot stones, just like before. You help rotating them gently with a stick, trying not to crack the shells. The water hisses as stones are replaced, steam rising in lazy spirals. When done, the eggs are peeled carefully, reverently, and shared. You get one half. The yolk is deep yellow, almost orange. It tastes rich, dense. You savor it like gold. In the afternoon, the group experiments. Someone tries mixing ground seeds with honey. Someone else adds mashed berries. The mixture is flattened onto bark and dried by the fire. A few hours later, you have a kind of prehistoric energy bar, sticky, chewy, oddly delicious. You eat half. Save the rest. Wrap it in leaves. Tuck it into your pouch like treasure. Because it is. Evening brings the usual fire food soft talk. But tonight, someone's brought out something different. It's a hollowed gourd sealed with clay. They break it open and a smell wafts out that is intense. Fermented root mash, possibly tuber, possibly something else. It's bubbly, thick, and slightly purple. Everyone reacts like it's a treat. You take a sip. It's fizzy, tangy, kind of like kombucha's unshaven cousin. You cough. Someone pats your back. Later, while the fire crackles and people recline, someone tells a story. A funny one based on the cadence. It involves a bear, a stolen tuber, and someone falling out of a tree without dropping their dinner. You understand none of the words, but you laugh anyway. Because stories don't need subtitles when the delivery is perfect. You fall asleep to the smell of smoke, the taste of burnt sweetness still in your mouth, and the soft sound of someone humming beside the fire. Tomorrow you'll dig again, taste something new, probably choose something weird, maybe like it. Because prehistoric life isn't just survival, it's discovery, and every bite is part of the story. The next morning greets you not with hunger, but with anticipation. You're no longer surprised by the idea that breakfast might involve bugs, boiled bark, or whatever was buried under a rock 3 days ago. But today something feels different. There's a buzz, an actual honest-to-earth excitement in the air. People are moving quickly, someone smearing war paint on their face with crushed berry pulp. Another is sharpening a stick with more confidence than you've ever felt about anything. You ask what's going on. The answer, a feast. You blink. A what now? A feast. Not just a meal. Not just a shared root over some smoky moss. A real organized, borderline celebratory gathering. Apparently, it's in honor of a full moon, a successful trade, and more practically because they finally have more food than immediate need. Which means they can afford to get creative. First up, the prep. You're sent with a group to collect wild garlic minty leaves and a type of mushroom that grows near tree stumps and smells like wet leather. These will be chopped, crushed, mixed. For flavor, for ceremony, for show. Back at camp, the fire's been rebuilt larger than usual, surrounded by stones lined with clay tiles. Someone's dug a shallow pit nearby. This is the oven. You help line it with hot rocks, learning to place each one just right. Too close and the food burns, too far and you're just making warm dirt. Next comes the main course, a stew, but not just any stew. This one includes smoked fish from the trade leftover squirrel from 2 nights ago. Chunks of root vegetables, bitter greens, and yes, some of the safe-ish berries that no longer induce visions of flying bears. All of it goes into a hide pouch suspended with sticks over the fire. Heated stones are added to the water. The stew bubbles, spits, sings. You're given a task stir. You take the stick. Gently swirl the contents. It smells like salt smoke and something unfamiliar, something sharp and vegetal and promising. Someone brings you a skewer of roasted snails dipped in honey. You eat too without flinching. You've changed. And then comes dessert. Yes, dessert. It's a mix of mashed nuts, dried fruit, and something they call sky sugar, which turns out to be crystallized tree sap collected on cool mornings and stored in leaf wrappings. It's chewy, sweet, almost mapley. You help shape the mixture into little balls and roll them in powdered charcoal and wild mint. They look like dirt-covered pebbles. They taste like joy. By afternoon, everything's ready. The group gathers. Even those who usually lurk on the edges come close. Everyone brings something, a handful of seeds, a bundle of dried greens, a decorated stick that might be a spoon or might be art. Children dance in circles draped in grass. One trips. Everyone cheers. The food is placed in the center. No one eats yet. An elder steps forward. He speaks in low tones, rhythmic and steady. It's not a prayer. Not exactly. More like a thank you. To the land. The water, the animals, the unlucky squirrels, the bees, the weird mushrooms, the sky. You don't catch every word, but the meaning settles in your bones. We don't eat because we deserve it. We eat because the world let us. The stew is served in bark bowls. You get a generous scoop. It's rich, deep, layered in ways prehistoric food rarely is. You taste fish, earth smoke, root berry, and memory. It's the best thing you've eaten since you arrived, possibly ever. The sky begins to darken. Someone drums with a rock and a log. Others join with sticks, claps, stomps. A song rises, not polished, not pretty, but full of life, raw harmony. You're pulled into the dance. You don't know the steps. No one cares. You sway. Step. Laugh when you trip. You're given more stew, more tree sugar. Someone paints a line across your cheek with ash and smiles. There's no schedule here, no speeches, just celebration, togetherness, a brief perfect pause in a difficult life. Later, someone pulls out a carved bone flute and plays a slow melody. You sit beside the fire, watching the embers float upward, belly full, head light, limbs heavy in the best way. A child curls up beside you, holding a woven pouch of crushed nuts. She offers one to you. You take it. She falls asleep. You almost do too. The feast winds down. Dishes such as they are licked clean, wiped with moss, or thrown in the fire. People curl into each other. The fire cracks gently. Somewhere a frog croaks a sleepy solo. You lie back staring at the stars, so bright, so sharp you could swear they're watching. This is what it's like, you think, to be full, not just of food, but of presence, of place, of people who shared what little they had to make something special. It might be gone tomorrow, but tonight you feast, you wake to silence. Not the kind that means danger, not the thick, too quiet hush that comes when predators are near. This silence is different, soft, warm, earned. The kind that wraps around you like a well-worn blanket after a night of singing, dancing, and eating your body's weight in root stew. The fire's still glowing, just barely. A few people are still sleeping, limbs draped over hides. Feet sticking out awkwardly, a half-eaten honey nut ball cradled lovingly against one person's chest. You smile. You feel it in your cheeks. Not because anything's especially funny, but because your entire body is still humming from the joy of being alive and not hungry. You stretch. Everything pops. Everything's sore. Everything's worth it. There's no rush today. The mood is slower, looser. People shuffle, not march. You take your time rising. Step carefully over someone snoring. Wander toward the creek to splash cold water on your face. It shocks you into the present in the best way. Breakfast is modest, a handful of reheated stew, a piece of dried fish, a berry or two left over from last night's spread. But you savor it. You eat like a person who remembers what it's like to go without. Someone asks you to help gather clay. Not food today, not even firewood. Clay. You say yes. You walk to the riverbank with two others, a child skipping behind you carrying a flat woven basket like it's a treasure chest. The spot they lead you to is quiet, shaded, soft with mud. You dig into the earth with your fingers, scooping out heavy lumps of dense gray clay. It's cool, sticky. Smells like rain and old things. You fill the basket, carry it back. Your arms ache. Your shoulders tighten. But you feel useful. The clay is for pots. Pots for cooking, for storage, for trading, for boiling water so people don't get sick. These pots might hold food that feeds someone else, might make their life easier, might outlive you. Someone lets you help shape one. They show you how to coil, how to smooth with a damp leaf, how to fix a crack before it becomes a disaster. The pot is lopsided but solid. But you leave it in the sun to dry proud. Back at camp, a boy is trying to make a sling out of bark fiber. He throws a stone that flies directly into the stew pot and cracks it. Everyone groans. He looks horrified, then bursts out laughing. So does everyone else. The cracked pot is turned into a planter for herbs, because nothing is wasted. Not food, not tools, not effort. You spend the afternoon helping with prep for the next hunt, not because you're hunting, but because you can tie twine now without tangling it around your ankle. You help braid a net, gather feathers to fletch arrows, sharpen a stick with a stone until it could probably poke something unfortunate. You've stopped asking what meat is. If it doesn't have eyes, you eat it. You eat lunch under a tree, flatbread, a smear of bitter paste, a piece of fish that smells better than it looks. You chew thoughtfully while someone carves a fish hook from bone beside you. It's hypnotic the way they work, quiet, efficient, full of intention. Everything here is like that. Nothing just happens. Every meal has a backstory. Every tool has a ghost. Every bite you chew passed through dozens of hands, hours of labor, and more luck than you'll ever deserve. You help build a smoker for the next meat haul. A frame of sticks, some bark sheets, moss to trap heat. Someone sprinkles crushed herbs into the fire so the smoke smells sweet and keeps bugs away. You're handed a pouch of dried beetles as a snack. You eat them like chips now. You don't even flinch. Evening comes quietly. The hunters return dragging a small boar and a cluster of birds. Everyone gathers, no feasting tonight, just butchering, salting, wrapping for later. You watch as they strip the meat carefully, setting aside bones for tools, hides for tanning, fat for later rendering. One woman saves the liver for someone who's been sick. You're given the tail. You roast it. It tastes like rubber and soot. You eat every bite because you were given it, and that matters. You sleep early tonight, not out of exhaustion, though that's there too, but because it feels right. Like the day is finished, like you did what was needed, like the world is quiet enough now to rest. You lie on your side, curled into your fur wrap, and listen to the night. No stories tonight, just fire and frogs and wind, and the slow, steady feeling in your chest that for once you're not just surviving, you're participating. The next morning begins not with food, but with questions. You wake to someone tapping your shoulder, their face shaded against the rising sun. They're holding a bone in one hand and a piece of fur in the other. They gesture toward the forest. You're going somewhere. You sit up, blink the dreams out of your eyes, and follow. You walk for a while. Long enough for the quiet to settle, for the birds to forget you're there. Eventually you arrive at a clearing you've never seen before. In its center is a tree stump, hollowed and blackened, filled with coals. Around it, bundles of herbs, a few dried roots, a stone bowl. It's not a kitchen. It's something older. They're making medicine. No one speaks. One by one, the others arrive, each carrying something small: bark seeds, a carved wooden scoop. You're handed a pestle and shown a pile of dried leaves. Grind them. You do slowly. The smell is sharp, resinous, almost spicy. As you crush the leaves, someone else adds a trickle of honey to the bowl. Another grates a tuber into pale shreds. Soon it becomes a paste, thick, brownish, slightly alarming. They smear some onto a piece of bark and hand it to you. You hesitate. They nod. You take a small bite. Bitter. Very bitter. But beneath that, something soothing, cooling. Your mouth tingles. Your tongue feels relaxed. This isn't breakfast. It's healing. You learn that this mixture is used for stomach sickness, for coughs, for bad dreams. It won't cure a spear wound, but it might settle your mind enough to sleep. You ask where they learned it. They tap their chest, their head, then point to the sky. Maybe it was passed down. Maybe it was whispered by wind. Maybe it was just trial and error, with a heavy focus on the error. Historians still argue whether prehistoric medicine was rooted in observation, spiritual belief, or just eating things until someone shouted, "Stop back at camp." You see a girl with a poultice on her leg, a bruise or bite or something she picked up trying to outclimb a goat yesterday. She smiles at you and offers half a roasted nut. You take it. Later, someone calls for help. An elder needs assistance building a drying rack. For fish, no. For herbs. You tie reeds into a lattice, balance it on forked branches, hang strips of bark twisted into ropes with leaves tucked between. These are the medicines of the next few days. Chewed for energy. Boiled for pain. Laid under pillows to ease bad sleep. Even food, it turns out, can be medicine. At midday, you eat slowly boiled root mash, a spoonful of bitter green broth, a roasted snail dipped in something sour. Everything tastes like the forest. You feel like you've earned it. That afternoon, a small group returns with something unexpected: fruit. Again, this time it's unfamiliar, small, green, ridged like a lizard's tail. You sniff it, poke it, finally bite into it. It's tart, extremely tart. Your entire face contracts into a squint. Everyone laughs. Apparently this is expected. The fruit is called wakeberry or something similar, used before hunts, used before cold mornings, used before long walks. You're wide awake now. A few are chopped and mixed with mashed nuts, tuber flour, and water to make a thick paste. It's shaped into small patties and dried over the fire. Travel food. Not for tonight, but for the next trip. Or the one after. Dinner is simple leftovers. A stew of odds and ends, root skins, bird scraps, greens that probably shouldn't still be edible but somehow are. The kind of meal that says, "We made it work." Afterward, you're shown how to make your own pouch. A food pouch. It's a piece of hide folded, stitched with sinew, lined with dried moss. It's small, just enough to hold a handful of seeds, a chunk of jerky, a honey-wrapped snail if you're lucky. You keep it beside you as you sleep, because now you're the kind of person who needs a pouch. Because now you're someone who gathers, who stores, who thinks ahead. You fall asleep with it cradled in your hands like a talisman. Tomorrow you'll fill it, not because you expect hunger, but because out here it always finds a way back. You wake before the sun, not because someone shakes you, but because your stomach growls loud enough to rattle a bird from a nearby branch. Last night's stew was fine. Your little food pouch is still empty, and you can feel the tug of hunger, not urgent, but persuasive, like a friend who won't stop tapping your shoulder. So when someone gestures toward the woods with a basket in one hand and a bone knife in the other, you get up without hesitation. Today you're foraging, properly, not following, not watching, doing. Your group is small, 3 others, all fast walkers, all carrying slings and digging sticks. You trail behind at first until someone points to a patch of broad, flat leaves with purple veins. Dig there. You do. Your fingers sink into the cool dirt. The earth smells like mushrooms and secrets. You scrape gently, and eventually your fingers touch something hard, bulbous. A tuber. You tug. It resists. You tug harder. It gives way, suddenly flinging a gob of mud into your face. Everyone laughs. You do too. Tubers secured, you move on. Next berries. But not just any berries, these ones grow high. A vine dangles from a tree limb covered in pale pink fruit. You're lifted, yes, lifted onto someone's shoulders to reach them. Your hands shake slightly. You grab a handful, careful not to crush them, and drop them into a pouch lined with moss. The sun filters through the trees, now dappling the ground, making everything feel older and calmer. You begin to notice things. A certain flower with tiny white petals. A patch of bright green moss that smells minty. A line of ants carrying something that looks suspiciously like a beetle wing. Someone squats beside a log and peels back the bark. Grubs wiggling, plump, pale. You flinch. Then you reach in. You scoop up 2, drop them into a gourd bowl. You're not squeamish anymore. You're hungry. Farther in, someone yells softly. A signal, not danger, discovery. A tree stump hollowed and slick. Inside, mushrooms, the kind with brown caps and delicate undersides. Edible, maybe. There's discussion. You watch as an elder rubs one on the inside of their arm and waits. 5 minutes pass, no rash. No twitch, no visions. They're deemed safe. You help slice them with a sharp flake of stone, laying them carefully into a pouch of woven bark. You return to camp just before midday, baskets, heavy arms streaked with mud hair, decorated with accidental twigs. You feel triumphant. Back at camp, the prep begins. One person roasts the tubers, whole skin on in the embers. Another steams the mushrooms in a pouch over hot rocks. Someone else starts a small pan fry of grubs in animal fat with crushed herbs. Yes, really. You're asked to mash the berries. You use a stone and a bit of bark, slowly pressing the soft fruit into pulp. It stains your hands red, smells sweet, feels sticky. You resist the urge to lick your fingers barely. When it's ready, you spread it onto small rounds of seed flatbread toasted crisp by the fire. A prehistoric tartine. You sit cross-legged and take your first bite. The bread cracks. The berry mash bursts across your tongue, tangy and bright. It's messy and perfect. Then the grubs. You're handed a skewer, 3 of them roasted golden brown, glistening. You take a bite. Crunchy outside, creamy inside, seasoned with thyme-like leaves that leave a pleasant tingle. You nod, sincerely. You finish the skewer. The mushrooms are next, earthy, soft, rich, the kind of flavor that makes you pause between bites just to let it linger. You're told they grow only in rotted tree hollows. You make a mental note. The tubers are split open, steam pours out. You grab one with a stick burn, your fingertips yelp softly, then grin. It tastes like roasted chestnut and potato had a child and raised it in smoke. Someone pours a splash of fermented fruit drink into your cup. You sip. Fizzy. Dry. A little rude. You like it. The meal is shared with ease. No hierarchy. No favorites. The one who found the mushrooms gets the most, but no one hoards. Everyone eats. Everyone nods in approval. It's a good day. As the fire settles into coals, you sit back with your hands resting on your full belly and think about the path from root to roast. Every step mattered. Every hand mattered. You weren't just fed. You helped feed. Someone nudges you holding out your food pouch. You fill it a dried mushroom, a shard of seed cracker, a wrapped nut ball someone saved for later. You tie it closed hard, oddly full. Because it's not just about being full now. It's about preparing. You've learned the rhythm, the way a meal begins days before it's eaten, how even a bug must be noticed, respected, shared, and you're beginning to suspect something else too. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a recipe for remembering who we are. The fire is low tonight, no feast, no ceremony, just quiet crackles and the sound of someone snoring into a fur wrap. You sit beside it, poking at a root you're roasting, lost in thought. Tomorrow, they say, will be the long walk, not a hunt, not a trade run, a move. This camp, your camp now, doesn't stay in one place forever. The food runs out, the river floods, the smoke gets in everyone's lungs. So they pick up and leave, walk to the next place, start again. You're not nervous. Okay, maybe a little. But you've learned a thing or two. Enough to know how to carry your own weight. Enough to know that breakfast might be snails or bark or both. Enough to know that wherever you go, the hunger will follow. And now you know how to answer it. You eat your roasted root, burnt on one side, soft on the other. It's comfort food now. In the morning, everyone wakes earlier than usual. There's no rush, but there's a rhythm, furs, rolled baskets, bundled pouches packed. You help load the dried meat and carry your little clay pot like it's an heirloom. As you walk, you notice how quiet it is. Not solemn, just focused. Your feet find their pace in the mud. Your pouch bumps gently against your side. A few children sing a marching song in a language that has no verbs, just sounds. You hum along. Around midday, you stop. Not for camp, just for food. Someone unrolls a leaf bundle. Inside, dried berries, hard root slices, smoked insect paste wrapped in moss. You chew, you share. You sip water from a gourd passed from hand to hand. No one hoards. Not even the sweet stuff. You reach into your own pouch and offer your nut ball, the one you were saving. The old woman beside you grins and bites into it without hesitation. That grin means more than 100 thank yous. Later you come to a clearing. It's nothing special, a patch of grass, a few trees, some soft ground. But someone gestures. This is it. This is the new place. And so the rituals begin again. Fire pit, shelter, foraging plans, food storage. You help rebuild the drying rack first. You gather bark. You strip leaves. You check a patch of soil for mushrooms out of habit and find two. Not much, but you grin. You're getting the hang of it. Dinner is minimal. A stew of whatever was easiest to carry, dried meat, broken roots, herbs that didn't wilt. It's thin, a little smoky, but no one complains. The stars come out slowly, and as people settle into the rhythm of this new old place, something shifts in you. You realize food isn't the centerpiece here. It's the thread, the thing that binds everything together. The digging, the drying, the boiling, the burning, the chewing, even the jokes. Historians still argue whether early humans lived meal to meal or memory to memory. But sitting here under a sky so open it feels like it might fall in, you realize it's both. You remember every strange bite, every weird smell, every bug that crunched unexpectedly. You remember the berry that made someone dance and the fish that wouldn't stop smelling like socks. You remember being hungry, being full, being part of something. You lie back on the ground and breathe in the scent of earth ash and roasted mystery. And you smile. Because it's never been about the mammoth steak, it's always been about this. The new camp is already starting to feel lived in. Someone tied feathers to the frame of the drying rack. Someone else carved a face into the fire pit stones, big eyes, goofy smile like a guardian or a joke. Kids have picked favorite sleeping spots. A flat rock is now the table even though no one eats at it. You helped move a pile of roots under an overhang so they'd stay dry. You weren't asked, you just knew it needed doing. That's new. So is your food pouch. It's heavier now, not just in weight but in meaning. You filled it without thinking, a dried frog leg, some smoked root chips, a sour berry that you're still not sure about but will probably eat anyway. Today is slow, a rest day. You help strip bark from a fallen tree, thin layers peeled carefully, used for baskets, kindling, flavoring stews, wrapping fish. Someone explains that chewing it also helps with toothaches. You file that away for future suffering. Midday brings a small meal broth made from bones you carried all the way here, bitter herbs, and that funky purple root you pretended to like 2 camps ago. It's growing on you. Or you're growing into it. You eat with your fingers, wipe them on your knees. No one blinks. Later you join the foragers, not to collect, just to learn. You crouch beside a woman as she points out which leaves repel insects and which ones make you itch for a week. She shows you a tiny flower that smells like licorice and makes you sleepy if you boil it. She hands you one. You crush it gently. The scent is soft, familiar, oddly comforting. She asks what you used to eat before. You pause, then laugh. What did you used to eat? You mention bread, cheese, things that come in shiny packages. She stares, then nods, then mimics opening a package with exaggerated surprise. You both laugh. At night, the mood is quieter than usual. No music, no feast, just chewing. Crickets, the soft rhythm of someone grinding seed into flour for tomorrow. You take out your food pouch, untie it, lay it open on your lap. Everything in it was once strange. Now it's normal. Now it's yours. You nibble a bit of dried mushroom. It's leathery, earthy, somehow sweet. You lie back, hand resting on your stomach, the stars blinking down through trees that feel like they've known you forever. Someone nearby coughs. Someone else hums. Someone starts to snore and a small pebble sails through the air toward their general direction. You smile in the dark. The fire crackles. A few people sit near it, sharing the last of the travel stew, leaning against each other. You hear a whisper and then quiet laughter. You don't say anything. You just feel it. The weight of the day. The warmth in your bones. The knowledge that if you had to, you could do it all again tomorrow. The foraging, the chewing, the confusion about whether that nut will kill you or just make you weird for a few hours. You could do it. You already have. You close your eyes, arms folded, pouch tucked close to your side. And in the quiet of the prehistoric dark, you think you didn't just learn what they ate. You lived it, one weird root at a time. Now the fires are low, the food is eaten, the tools are stashed. The forest has gone quiet again, its creatures curled into their burrows, its leaves still under the weight of night. You lie there on soft earth, your body heavier than it's been in days, not from effort, but from fullness. Your stomach hums with roasted root and smoked fish and strange little things you never thought you'd dare to swallow. But you did. And you're here. The air is cool now, the sky wide and velvet. The stars blink slowly like they're trying to remember your name. There's no sound but the occasional sigh of a breeze through tall grass and the almost imperceptible creak of wood cooling after a long, smoky burn. Your limbs relax. Your breath slows. You feel the rhythm of an older world pulsing gently under your back. This was a place without clocks, without recipes, without schedules, only hunger and rhythm, only memory and fire, only people who knew how to share. And now you've walked their trail. You've chewed their roots, sucked marrow from their bones, swallowed their beetles, and sipped their fermented dreams. You belonged with them, and you still do. So let the night take you now. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts settle. Let the fire fade behind your eyes. You're fed, you're full, you're safe. You're full.